today we have an interesting panel session talking about artificial intelligence and your future in the workplace. Now, AI is like the buzzword that we've all been hearing about in recent years or recent months with the rise of ChatGPT. But we want to actually see how it impacts you and your career in this thing we call a 9 to 5, or in this thing we call doing a business or running a startup. So I have esteemed panelists to help me address the questions that I have and you also have. So join me as I welcome some of our esteemed panelists. We have Chsom Nwokwu, as a software engineer at Microsoft. Please, a round of applause for her. All right. Now, for our second panelist, I know he has engagement, but I'm hoping he's still around. Olumide Okubadejo, is he still around? Yes, please, a round of applause for Olumide, a software engineer at Spotify, one of the foremost companies in the world today. And finally, we have Abdulquddus Ajibade, an AI engineer. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for Abdulquddus and Olumide. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining this panel. And I know we've spent quite some time, so we're going to try to make this short, concise, and hitting the critical points that we need to hit as it relates to AI and our future in the workplace. So I think I'll start by asking the panelists a general question. As it is right now, with the state of everything that is going on with artificial intelligence, with the rise of generative AI, and everybody is afraid that AI will take our jobs. But I think I want to be a little bit optimistic and ask, is there a level of AI literacy that we need to have in the workplace today to be able to survive in the workplace? So, yeah, Abdulquddus, please help us hit this.
I'm sure a lot of us actually have been very familiar with the hype of AI we now have, especially this 2023. There's been a lot of breakthroughs in AI, right? And we've heard a lot of rumors about how close we are to the AGI. Whenever there's any AI product being released, there is uproar everywhere, and people start getting concerned. So a lot of people start asking questions on how to actually jump on this trend of artificial intelligence. Then that brings the question about how literate you need to be to now start adopting this. Yeah, I would say you don't need to be an AI engineer. You don't need to be an AI expert to use AI products. You don't need to be an AI professional to start adopting this particular AI. So what you just need to do is, there are a lot of documentations. Whenever any product is released, they used to be released with documentations, right? So you just go online, read about it, read about how AI is going to, impact your workplace in whatever it is you are doing. You just need that information, not really like being an expert, right? So I would say it's just like basic knowledge about what AI and how AI can help you. That's how.
I think that there is some literacy that we should have. Maybe not about AI, but about the tools that are created in the space. I would say that people who have adopted ChatGPT into their work stream, might be doing much better than, another company that is still doing most of those things manually. One of the things that we have to understand about AI is that it enables processes to go faster, and it enables new vistas in the kinds of processes that it now creates. So in my mind, it is about the literacy of the tools, the knowledge of the tools and the use of the tools, and leveraging these tools to create new stuff, better things, better processes. I would imagine a mid-journey, for instance. I was a couple of days talking to a designer, and I was like, it was doing Figma designs, and instead of going and looking for all the stock images, like let's just sit down and generate something from Mid-Journey. You as a Figma designer can now, get your designs out quickly without having to look for images or look for stock images, make sure you're not infringing on rights or copyrights. So I think that there is a knowledge of the tools, which is very important. But I also think that as we go ahead, as we move, there is a certain technological literacy that needs to be enabled. I feel like AI has raised the bar, and as such, the knowledge of what the knowledge in tech has to be raised to what is possible, what we can do, what we can build. I think we're getting to a point where if you don't know how to code Python, you might not be able to able to get a job. I don't know. I don't want to be the agent of doom, but I feel like we have to get to the point where there is a certain, base level of technological literacy that would have been augmented just by the invention of these tools.
Okay, so I feel like, well, no, I don't feel. I know that there should be a certain kind of literacy when it comes to AI, and I am a big advocate of saying that if you do not know how something works, you won't appreciate it, right? Just like when you buy a new fridge and you're throwing the manual away. Best believe that if you actually take your time to read what's in that manual, you can use that fridge to its full potential. So most of us use ChatGPT today, which is something that's very popular, but we don't actually know how it works. Like he said, you don't need to be an AI engineer or a machine learning engineer. You just need to watch videos or read documentations that break down these concepts. There's so many buzzwords like deep learning, language learning, and all of that. Just know like a high level understanding of what those things mean and how these things are built on a high level. Another thing I also want to mention is that AI is data driven. Most of these models you see today are built with already existing data. So as a human being or as someone in the workforce generally, you have to understand that you have to be data literate. You have to be appreciative of what data can do and the power data has in your business or literally in whatever you're doing. And lastly, I would say that AI is it's more of like collaboration over competition. You're not looking at AI as something that's come to take your job. You're looking at it as something that you can collaborate with to make your job more efficient. And you're not like, oh, no, I'm not going to use this because I feel like it's going to compete with me or stuff like that. So having this mindset that AI is not coming to take your job, but having another mindset that it's also acting as an assistant or like as a fellow collaborator.
All right. Thank you very much, Chsom. Now, I think still on this issue, I would like to go deeper a little bit. So in those days when we're applying for jobs, when I say in those days, it's not so far off, please. You will see something like, oh, knowledge of Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint as basic computer literacy to be able to get a job. But now we're seeing companies like Microsoft and other big tech companies integrating AI right into these productivity tools that we're talking about, right? The Microsoft Word, you can now create prompts or create articles and all of that. So how do you think this will impact the average employer or employee who just knows how to open a Word document and start typing and all of that? Is the standards going to change or the goalposts change as it were?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that the world is changing in a positive way and AI is here to stay, whether we like it or not. But we as people in the technology space or people in the workspace, we have to adapt to these changes. We have to know what is expected of us. I would use a story that I learned from someone at a convention like this, and he said, someone is using a chainsaw to cut wood. He has been doing that for years. And the next day, the company buys a machine that can do that perfectly, almost as perfect as he does. So the question is, does the person lose his job? I would say the person will only lose his job if he doesn't have the technical know-how of how to use that machine. So I would say AI will only be detrimental to you as a person if you're not familiar with how to use it, right? Other things it will impact in a positive way because it makes you more productive. It makes you automate your processes faster, like repetitive tasks that you do at work. It makes you more efficient in what you're doing. and AI is data driven as well. So you can get very important insights from the things that you're doing at work. So it's going to impact you in a positive way. But the only way to be bad for you is if you neglect the fact that this is what you have to learn, if you're closed-minded, right? So you have to be very open-minded in learning different kinds of technology and just be more flexible.
Okay, thank you very much, Chsom. I have more thoughts, but let me keep them to myself for now. So, but Olumide, the creative industry and the technology companies that have been powering the creative industries have been on the forefront of this AI revolution for years, even before the rise of generative AI, right? Spotify, Netflix, their content recommendation systems, algorithms, and all of that. Is this something other sectors can actually learn from these creative focus companies, as it were, or should they find their own path, something like that?
That AI is coming. I don't know. Yeah, see, the journey for Spotify around AI is actually different. So many people think that generative AI just came, right? I happen to do my PhD in AI, and right from 2016, 2015, there was already generative AI. It hadn't just matured, right? And Spotify made the inroad into generative AI. I think a lot of research into generative AI from 2018, 2019, right? And most of what generative AI is enabling is, I would say, the creative industry. I'm trying to explain it in my mind, but let me see if I can go. What generative AI means is we do not just know how to predict, how to classify, but we're now at a point where we have now learned the entire field, right? And the AI can now make mistakes. In maths, we say we have learned the supports, or we now have a likelihood function or something. It's more complex. But in a sense, what it means is if you are a painter, you now have an AI that knows how to paint in quotes by watching people paint. For instance, Netflix has done a lot of work in that. I know that a couple of friends have been talking about end-to-end movies that no human has worked on. In Spotify, we've worked on, I would say there's one album specifically on Spotify that there was no human in the loop from beginning to end.
Wow.
So there's this research has always been going on. The way that other fields can learn from it, I really don't know, but we need to change the way we think about AI to find like vistas by which we can do new things. The Nigerian creative industry, for instance, we can maybe start to look at automating end-to-end animation movies, for instance, right? We can start to look at script writing. I had a friend of mine, his entire research was songwriting by an AI. And oh my God, I was looking at a song that the AI wrote some days back, and it was perfect. Like the rhymes, the verses, it's talking about love, of course, but but we're there. So in a sense, we can start to look at script writing within the Nigerian context. We can also start to look at maybe sound augmentation, making our sound better. How many of us saw something that was released some days back where if you do a podcast now on Spotify, it automatically gives you a different language, but in your voice, right? So it just feels like you're speaking that language. We can also do that for local languages here. We can even get into law. We can have AI lawyers. Who knows? So I think that there are many ways by which we can have that, especially within our system, where we have, I think, more vistas for applicability. But yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you. Funny you should mentioned AI lawyer. There's a startup in Rwanda, e-arbitrators, that's actually trying to build something based off the GPT 3.5 framework, an AI lawyer that drafts your contracts, constructs your contracts. So you don't need to hire a lawyer. When you want to send you an employment contract, you don't need to go and look for a lawyer to look at it. Probably, please, you should. I mean, I'm not saying you should, but that's the idea they're trying to, and I think it's quite interesting. It's very, very interesting to think of the applications in the creative industry. So thank you so much. Abdulquddus, let's come to the realm of software engineers. They've always felt like the golden guys of the tech space, right? Everybody needs to learn how to code. Everybody needs to learn how to code. But generative AI is making us rethink this whole idea of, oh, everybody should learn how to code. Is it plausible that this whole issue with AI could negate the need for software engineers in mass? Or, okay, let me not preempt with any further interrogation.
Actually, this is actually a very funny question, right? Because I would want to ask if we have anyone that actually uses these AI tools as assistants in coding. So do you have anyone that uses almost everyone, right? Okay, so I'm very sure if you use it very well, right? Except maybe if you use the ChatGPT Plus, and you know that one is quite expensive, right? So a lot of people actually use the free ChatGPT, or at most some other AI tools like Find. You would notice the number of flaws they have. You understand? So you would realize that it's actually close to impossible for them to for the tools to solve a particular task completely without having any issues. Do you understand? I'm not sure if you've noticed that sometimes the kind of hallucinations, we call them hallucinations, the kind of hallucinations they have sometimes, they kind of scare you. So because you copy the codes, you ask, for instance, ChatGPT to write a Python code to solve a particular task you are working on, and the next thing you copy the code, you try it out, and it starts throwing your errors. Okay, now you start debugging. Then you spend hours debugging what ChatGPT has written for you. Then you now start, reading documentations. You now start realizing that ChatGPT has suggested a library that doesn't even exist. Have you ever noticed that? Can you imagine? A library that doesn't exist. Then you start to import this. Okay, people install this. Then the thing will even install for you. Then when it's not time to import it and use it, then you start realizing this thing is not working. ChatGPT has written nonsense for you. Even if you use the ChatGPT Plus, there is a level of hallucination it also has. So it just shows us that you shouldn't be scared, right? I just see ChatGPT and other AI tools as servants. AI, you should see AI like a servant, like an assistant. Do you understand? That's how I expect us to see it. We embrace it, then we tame it. We just use it to our own advantage. I also see AI as a cape for software engineers that make them superheroes, right? Because when you work on a task on your own, it takes you a lot of time. But when you start using tools like ChatGPT and some other some other LLM tools, generative AI tools to assist you with your work, you notice it becomes faster. Then you learn a lot of things. One thing I would say AI has brought is that it has pushed a lot of people to learn things. This is an era of learning. You just keep when ChatGPT came, people started seeing the flaws of ChatGPT. People started doubting it and all. But then you start hearing the story of Llama 2. Then people started looking for how Llama 2 was actually better than ChatGPT. It pushed people to learn, and that's how it will continue for a very long while, because they will keep releasing tools. We have AI researchers. They are working on these things, so they will keep releasing them, benchmarking them on already released tools, benchmarking them. Do you understand? So it keeps getting better. So we need to jump on that trend by learning the flaws and learning how they've been able to improve on them, so that we just tame it, use them to our own advantage. And yeah, I think we should just be cool. We should embrace it, and we should not be scared. It's not taking our, at least not anytime soon. I'm very sure of that one.
quickly, Chsom and Olumide, do you guys agree that we shouldn't be scared?
Do we believe you should be scared?
I scared.
I do actually, because
I feel like if you're someone that not you don't have a growth mindset when it comes to learning and you're not open-minded, you should be scared because it's gonna take your job, right? So if you're someone that's hungry for knowledge in every single thing that you're doing, you shouldn't be scared because, like he said, you're meant to treat it like a servant, not actually someone that's like a master, right? So it all falls back to having a growth mindset because more things are going to come up and you're meant to adapt to the ever-changing, like,
okay, okay, I concede. But does anyone want to pose a challenge? Just one question. Okay, please.
Are we saying that there are no security in terms of protection? Okay, few days ago, I can't remember if it is a TDR or Brill newsletter that GitHub Copilot is exposing secrets of coding. Are we saying that AI has no disadvantage or there's no security effect on lives and even how we use them, the information we are providing to this AI? How is it? Are we saying there are no disadvantages to this?
So, Olumide, you want to take that?
There are disadvantages, definitely. Data exposing issues like you talked about. One of the things we realize is if you think about how an AI works, it works from data, right? And when we train them, we try as much as possible that they do not memorize the data, that they learn the generality of the data. So we don't want you to memorize what we're giving you. We want you to learn about that particular thing we're giving you. But it's not always successful. You know, sometimes you have rote memorization. So you could have, I remember somebody was talking about, I think it was ChatGPT that was giving people Microsoft's keys that were like these keys were real keys and were working. I was like, interested. So we do have some of those. There was a point where we were training a model in the lab and we were teaching the model to do something. Over the weekend, the model had learned something else. And I remember being perplexed. I and my boss were having coffee, and my boss looked at me. In French, he said, "This is the end of the world." I'm like, "Oh, well." And he's like, "Okay, maybe we'll just make money while..." that is just great. But there are safeguards, right? There are safeguards. There are a lot of safeguards on the way. Researchers will not release those kind of models. Researchers are working out to make sure that the models that is being released is safe. The companies are making sure that the models that are released are safe. The government is working to make sure that models that are released are safe. Nigeria is even about to have their own AI body. In Europe, you don't just release a model. In fact, there was a model we wanted to release, and they came back to us and said, because we trained the model on servers in the US, they're not going to allow us release it. And we had to come back to European servers to try to train. So there are a lot of safeguards in place to make sure that some of the pitfalls you talked about, we don't get into it. Yeah. And even if we do get into some, I can assure you, it's the trivial, little, small ones, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about the safeguard measures. So actually, the more scary aspect of AI is the generative AI, right? That's what is making people scared most about AI. And you would notice that when I think around the beginning of this year, there was this issue when the rumors of ChatGPT 4, before they released ChatGPT 4, when the rumors started coming and Elon Musk and top AI guys started bringing like issues that, please, let's put a stop to this. At least the world is not ready yet. See, for Elon Musk to be scared, Elon Musk, how very, for Elon Musk to be scared, yes, we might be scared, but then there are safeguard measures already in place. So they are regulating the production of this. I'm not sure if you've noticed that there are some questions you can't actually ask ChatGPT. It will tell you that, no, I'm not allowed to answer this kind of question. You get, if they allow it to answer, it would answer you, but they had to put measures to this. Same with DAL-E, the stable diffusion model. If you prompt an image, maybe an X-rated image, it will tell you that no, it's not allowed to do that. Of course, if they had allowed it, it would have done that. Maybe we might then be scared, but then there are measures already in place to allow us not to push this AI beyond, benefiting advantages, right? So,
Chsom, final thoughts?
No.
Oh.
Said it.
Okay. Yeah, I think this has really, really been an interesting session. Do we have time? The issue is time. My manager. Okay.
Don't worry.
Thanks. My name is Samuel Austin. Hey, this is an exciting. We're talking about the modern workplace of Africa, and as we talk about AI, many of the things I say is that we don't even have data effectively from Africa to model some of the things that we want to model for the workplace that we need in Africa. What's your thoughts on that? Another place I'll just stop, just step on what he was talking about, which is this fear. And I want to just talk about, what do you think about AI in the HR for the African future? Because many people are going to freelancing, doing their own job, but how do we, is there a way you see us creating a system that can match the AI to the jobs that we need to be doing to develop our country and our continent? So one question is the data. What do you think about it? Because it looks like we don't even have data for modeling AI for African countries. And also, how do we then make sure that the young people are taking this AI and not just using it to try and bypass things, but actually use it to develop the nation? Do you have any structure or thinking that you have around that? Thank you.
Chsom?
Okay, I'll take the question for the lack of data. I think it's a very common issue because I believe that AI thrives heavily on the data that you feed it. And for now, I think it's not really our problem. I think the smaller problem we can solve as human beings is probably keeping your own data and all. But when we're talking about like data for the whole continent, it's something that we hold our leaders accountable for. Like he mentioned, the Nigerian government is trying to like bring up like an AI
AI policy. Yeah.
yes, that could like put some regulations and all of that. I feel like when the right people are put in the right place, those initiatives can have life, right? We can have, I think I was speaking to someone yesterday on having like a universal hospital management system where people just have an identification and you can see all their medical records. I mean, those things like that can really help, especially when we want to move like the AI route. So it's not really our problem. We can do so little to solve that. But the problem comes from when we don't have the right set of people in the government that could drive this initiative. And your second question was around HR, hiring and all of that. I feel like it's possible, yeah, but I would also say that AI still has a problem with fairness and bias, right? Most of these models are built by, sorry to say, people that are not black skin, right? Most of these models are built by people outside of the country. So we have to design our own models that are custom to what we believe as like Africans, right? People that we probably want to hire, the requirements that you're setting and all of that. So it's something that could start, but it's something that's going to take time. But the earlier we start, the better. So.
Okay. So,
So I would speak as regards the data issue. I would say, you see, the responsibility is for everyone, actually. The startup founders, company owners, data professionals, the government. You understand? So like she said, AI thrives heavily on data, and not only data, good data, because it's always like garbage in, garbage out. So I've seen a situation where a startup wanted a model for something, right? So, and the first question I asked was, "Oh, do you guys have data?" And they were like, "Data." So you want me to build a model for you on what exactly? I can't use another company's data to build a model that will work for your own company. You need a data. So I think the issue actually started from the research and development stage of starting a company. You understand? So you need to start factoring that, putting that into consideration, how your company is going to thrive with AI. Start making provisions for data infrastructure in your company. Do you understand? Right from the research and development stage. Hire data professionals. I don't understand how you want a software engineer to do the work of a data scientist. Do you understand? So because it's just as important as your products. Do you understand? So I would say that we should all take that responsibility.
Okay, just 1 minute to add. For the data, I think our problem is unstructured data accessibility and unstructured data. And there are ways to work around it. I think going back to what he said about CEOs, I feel like what we need is a data mindset and AI mindset. If I were building a company right now, what I'll do is, and I wanted to solve a problem, let's not forget that there are parametric solutions to the problem, right? So let's talk about the HR problem. You have a parametric solution to the problem. You know what it takes to hire within this space, and then you have a parametric solution to it first. Now, as the system is being used, you're generating data and you're structuring it. Then after a year of operations, you ask yourself, what can I leverage on? What can I build on this? How can I restructure to aid my operation? So you move from something that is parametric into maybe something that is more AI-based and is also debiased because it has been built for the system, it has been built for our environment. So in as much as these problems exist, we need to change our thinking in how we build, and we need to know that, it's not, I want a product now that has to be AI. We need to think about the entire life cycle and how and where we plug AI into it or machine learning and how we generate data from the beginning and leverage it later.
All right, thank you very much. And please, a round of applause for our panelists. This has really been an interesting session. And for those of us who were probably thinking, oh, this is just for software engineers and data scientists, no. Those of us in the creative industry, that's why I specifically asked a question around that. Those of us in sales, those of us in marketing, AI is becoming relevant to almost every job role I can think of right now. And I don't think, just like Chsom said, you could only become obsolete if you don't have that growth mindset and that learning mindset. So thank you very much once again, and thank you for coming to this session. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for my panelists.